Hi, it's Dominic from SperanoArts.com. Today's video is more than just a tip. I know I've been away for some time, haven't done any daily tips in a while. The reason was that I was working on a very large commission, but that's completed and I look forward to getting back to doing more tips for you soon. However, today, as I said, it's more than just a tip. This is a long form glaze lecture that I gave my students at Island Pottery Studio in Mineola, New York. It's a series of question and answers as well as just the information I wanted to impart. So you'll hear other voices on this video, but you'll only pretty much see my face. They were all aware that they were being videotaped, which you'll see in the video itself. If you have any other questions about glazing or you want something to read up on what I go over in this video, you can go to SperanoArts.com and look at the blog specifically on glazing, or you can email me, speranoarts@gmail.com. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoy the video, and I hope you find it informative. I know 3 of you have not glazed anything before, and 2 of you have. So for the 2 that have glazed, what are your major glazing pet peeves or problems?
Well, I have sometimes the glaze accumulates too much in one place, and then it'll get a little bubbly. So I think it's just my technique, making sure that I'm holding it where the glaze comes out enough.
Occasionally drips down at the bottom.
Oh yeah, that.
So that it sticks to the shelf in the kiln.
Right.
And
Is that happening with like all the glazes or
No.
a particular one?
Usually it's when I'm layering things.
Because you're doing glaze.
You know, I've got one color and I want to cross it with something else so that I get a third color in the middle.
Right.
And quite often it's coastal blue and hay bale usually work for me, but the last one I think it was mottled green and something.
Hay bale for the first time ran all the way down, and I had the same problem. It got stuck to the kiln on the lower portion of the vase that I made, which I was really surprised because that's a glaze that's never usually has that type of consistency.
Is there a process to fix the dripping or fix the bubbling or
We're gonna
smooth it out? Or?
I'm gonna go into it. What I tend to do is, by the way, everyone understands like I'm actually filming this.
Yeah, that's okay.
Does anyone have a problem with that?
No.
That your voice may go on YouTube or something?
No.
Okay, cool. See now you know that it's perfectly okay.
There's a contract.
Doesn't matter. I got you.
No,
I got
as
you
long
agreeing on tape. I got you agreeing on tape.
As long as more than one person knows, that's all that counts.
There you go. See, there you go.
As long as you make it aware, you're good.
That's what I'm telling everyone right now. See, it's on tape. Anyway, the reason I usually ask people what their problems are so we can direct them. Typically, I find the glazing is usually the thing that people hate the most. I rarely find someone who goes like, "I love glazing." They usually go like, "I hate it. It's my worst thing. I don't like any of it. I always have this problem, blah, blah, blah." So I'm going to give you a bunch of rules and things that you should follow in terms of glazing. I'm pretty certain I told everyone this, but it looks like Patrice is the only one that listened or just did this of her own accord. Bring a notebook.
Oh,
When
I
you
can get
glaze.
you want paper?
Oh, I forgot.
No.
No, in general, have a notebook.
I'll just review from. Well, I have other.
To put down what you're doing.
So what you're doing.
Pictures of the things.
Right.
Yeah, I have them.
You want to have a notebook so that way when you do glaze combinations, you know what works and, more importantly, what failed horribly. So that way you don't repeat. You can touch it, it's fine. So that way you don't repeat the same mistake over and over again. Because chances are, like you do a combination of, say, like charcoal gray and iron red. Why anyone would do that combination, I have no idea.
Oh,
But let's say it comes out really cool and
I like it.
you like it, and then 6 months later, you look at the piece like, what was that combination? Or someone else asks you, and you don't remember.
I write them all down.
You always want to write them down. More importantly, though, let's say you do model green over a rebate, and the thing runs all over the place. You really want to write that down to make sure it doesn't happen again. Because I know that that's happened. The people repeat the same mistake, and they keep wondering, why is this happening to me?
I'm
So always write that
I'm
down.
confused. What do you mean by? Isn't a glaze just like a clear color that you just put on top of it? I don't understand. Like,
Well, I'm going to go into that too.
okay.
One question,
On this one.
Dominic.
Yeah.
I did 2 pieces in the same 2 colors on the same day,
Right.
but one of them ran on the side and bubbled up. The other one didn't.
So it could have been that
I think it was my technique then.
it could have been your technique. It also could have been the glazes that. Was it the same? Say that again. Was it the same color?
2 same colors. I used mink and blue rutile
Right.
to do half and half.
Right.
But on the one
Sorry, Julie,
piece,
you'll get it
it
upstairs.
collected in the side
Right.
and bubbled up.
It collected in the side, which means it got thicker, so
Mhm.
it didn't
I'm
expand and
assuming.
contract.
Right. And then
accordingly.
on the side of the wall, it must have ran down and
Right.
just stayed there too.
Yeah. So in that case, yes, it's a little bit of your technique. Sometimes it's the glaze. Sometimes the glaze is too thick, and that causes it to bubble and crack and pull because too much of it can't expand and contract with the square as it's
Okay.
firing. So
There was one thing too that I had a problem with. I used the burgundy glaze
Mhm.
to try to do
Oh, you're right.
just the rim on a mug. It had mottled green inside, and I had painted a design on the outside and clear glazed it, but just up to the top.
Right.
But I figured if I brushed on the burgundy for the rim,
right.
and it blotched. It was here and it was there, and it just
Because
didn't.
brushing, it's not a lot of glaze when you brush on, so it's very comes
I
out.
go over it.
Yeah, it gets applied though very thin and inconsistently. That's why we say you have to do like 3 passes when you brush at least. All these glazes, if it's a glaze in a bucket like this, it's not meant to be brushed on. It's meant to be dipped or poured.
So in
So
other
all this
words,
stuff.
So
Yeah.
I would have been better off just turning it upside down and going.
Full this way,
Right.
I'll catch it.
or you're probably better off using the underglaze
Yes.
because
Right.
those pieces I just
Right.
made, I underglazed,
Right.
and the orange came out really well because I did the whole entire piece, and then I just added other color to it.
There you go. So, going to your first question, what exactly is a glaze? A glaze is a suspension of chemicals. So you have different chemicals that do different things and colorants, right? So what the chemicals will typically do is lower or raise the temperature in which the glaze is going to melt. All right. So, and usually only by a couple of degrees, not like a massive.
It's not drastic.
It's not a drastic thing. It's just the melting. If it melts a little bit sooner, it gets a nicer run to it, or it looks a little prettier. It's for the aesthetic purposes. Whereas some other ones like that come out kind of like hay bale comes out a little bit more on the matte side, so it probably's got a higher glazing temperature. Again, I'm not a glaze chemist, so I'm probably just like
There are people that specialize in
they're
glazing.
glaze
Oh,
chemists that this is what they do, you know. So I'm probably, as I say, this is probably going to get some like person that comments on this YouTube channel, like, you know, you're completely wrong about that. It's like I'm just
Everyone
trying to
always
give
has
you
something to
yes,
say.
everyone has something to say. But basically speaking, if it's glossy like this or over here, chances are it melts a little bit lower and this melts a little bit higher. So that's what some of the chemicals do, and then other chemicals are in combination to create the colorants, right? So you have iron and cobalt and copper and rutile and zinc and a bunch of other things, talc, and that's what that
Chemistry
does.
really comes into play.
Chemistry is very
Oh, yeah.
important in this stuff, right? The best glazer I ever met was a former 40-year plus chemist.
Wow.
So he had been a chemist his entire professional life. So you could tell him what's in the glazing and knew exactly what was going to happen with it and how to apply that. He also was extremely patient. He would sit by the buckets and just like paint it on very carefully for like an hour or two, just chewing his gum and sitting there.
Well,
But
because he
I don't
wants
have
to
that
see-
patience.
He wants to see the outcome. That's why.
He knew. He just knew. Like, and I think in the 5 years I worked at that studio, he had something that overran twice. So, whereas mine would overrun all the time. Like, I'm not that patient of a glazer. He was ridiculously patient. So anyway, number 1, have a notebook, write down everything that you do. Number 2, do not rush anything. Right? You're going to glaze. set aside your afternoon to glaze, within reason, of course. But don't come in and be like, well, I'm just going to glaze these pieces really fast. It's never a good idea.
So how long does it usually take?
That's a personal thing. I'm just saying, like, set aside a block of time.
Will we have enough time today to do it?
Yeah, you have 2 pieces. You're fine. I'm saying when you've got like 5, 6, 7 pieces,
Oh, okay.
don't think you're going to run in and do it in half an hour, right? Don't think you can just tack it on like the last 15 minutes of class. Now, you have 1 piece that you're only going to do. 2 pieces you're going to do. You got 2 pieces you're going to do.
Mm-hmm.
You'll have plenty of time by the end of the day. If you need to go like 15 minutes past class time, you'll be fine.
Cool.
If you've got like 10 pieces, don't think that you're going to just like do it really quick.
And don't do all
Do they
pieces
dry?
in
Do
one
they
day,
dry
'cause
almost
you'll never
right
be-
away? Like, will we be able to walk out with them today?
No,
Oh no.
No.
you're going to have to get fired again.
They're gonna have to get fired again.
Yeah, but you can come by and pick it. You're not moving tomorrow.
No.
Yeah, so you by
I'm
next
going away
week or
next
so,
week. Yeah.
next week or 2 weeks from now, you'll be able to come by. and
Okay.
pick them up. Okay. So those are the 2 big things I'd always say. Now, number 3, you want to look at the board and you want to realize how to read the board. Every studio has a different kind of board. The other one I work at in Brooklyn, they have different clays next to each other on their test tile, so you can see like how the
Oh, black clay versus
black clay, white
white
clay,
clay,
speckled clay, red clay, so that way you can see how the glaze
That's
affects
cool.
over a spectrum. Here, we do it in an interesting manner, where it's you get to see the glaze combinations over something, and this is just the basic studio clay. So here you have hay bale over blue rutile, then blue rutile over hay bale, and what the over means, it's quite literal. You're dipping once and then dipping it into something else. So where it says hay bale over blue rutile, that means it was dipped into blue rutile first, and then hay bale was dipped over it. Okay? And where it says blue rutile over hay bale, that means hay bale was done first.
So it's different colored glazes, or
Mhm.
oh, it is. So I can change the
then
color of
blue
my product with the glaze.
You can, yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
Now, typically speaking, it used to be the rule when I was in undergrad that if you painted like Alejandro did and what you did, if you did an underglaze painting, you just put it in clear, because the concept was like, why'd you spend all that time and effort if you're just going to glaze over it with something else?
Right.
However, say like, it came out in a way you didn't like, then that's a great fix.
Right.
Well, this really sucks. I'm gonna now just dip it all in black and not worry about it anymore. So you can always think of glazing as another revision. Okay, so
Let's say you have something and you're happy with the colors and you want to
Right.
maintain, you just do clear.
just straight up
And
clear.
would you do a few coats or just
No, it's gonna be one dip. I'm gonna give it a live example of
Okay.
doing it too.
But just Dominic, just to touch on, if you have something that's already been fired,
Right.
and you dip it in clear, this is not going to stay pinkish.
Right,
It's
it
going
turns
to
more of
turn-
a brownish, sandy
Yeah,
brown.
and
Kind of
people
a
are
beige
a
color.
beige color, which people don't realize, and they become disappointed.
As
you
things
point
get
out
fired, actually, we can show you this example here.
And if it's plain clay and it gets
It'll be like a beigeish color.
like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Oh.
See?
Now, if like for instance, like if I want to keep these colors that I have on here, but I want to make like a different color glaze on the
Yeah, you can do
outside,
You can.
I can do that.
But you have to be real careful because when you dip on the outside, if you want those colors to maintain on the inside, you have to use the clear on that.
It's doable.
Yeah,
It's
you
doable.
can definitely do it. You
It's
just
not.
need
It's not. None of these things are hard. It's just you have to think about it ahead of time.
Now, when you say dipping, are you literally dipping, or are you
Yeah,
just
you can. Yeah.
really? You
Yeah.
You can't like gloss it on with like a paintbrush. Doesn't work. that
Like I
way?
said, it's not. These are not really meant.
As somebody who ran into that, that's what fouled me.
It's not really meant for brushing on. It's meant for dipping or pouring. That's
Gotcha.
the big thing. Yeah, I'm gonna need one of those. Thank you. I love these
Tools
tongs.
of the trade.
Tongs. These tongs are great. Okay, so basically that's how you can read these. That the colors here, like here's clear, and it just comes out clear, and then she put another color over it and under it, so that way, if you want to know like what it looks like to have This is coastal blue, and what coastal blue looks over model green, well, you look there. If you want to know what model green looks over coastal blue, you look over there. If you just want to know what the actual color is, look at the bottom. See, that's just like the pure color. Okay. Rutile, blue rutile. Okay, so that's how you can read these charts. All right.
And then a scale from 1 to 10, how toxic is this stuff?
Oh, it's water based.
Oh,
Like how? Well, it's a very good question. On a scale of 1 to 10, if you're doing this for 40 years with no protection, it's 10. If you're doing this for 40 years protecting yourself, it's 0. It really depends. Like you don't drink it. A common sense thing, right? If it gets on your skin, don't freak out. Just wash your hands immediately.
Or wear gloves.
Or wear gloves.
so it is indeed. Just
It can
need
be.
to kind of handle it carefully.
It's
Just
not toxic.
random
It's not toxic. Like if it gets on your skin,
killing it.
But if you dip your whole arm in there, you're gonna.
it's not even
No.
toxic to the level that if you
No.
dip your whole arm in there.
Right.
It's toxic that if you dip your whole arm in there for like 5 days a week over 40 years and don't
Okay.
wash your
Right.
hands,
All right.
you're going to then
Or
possibly
just
have
take
health problems.
precautions.
Yeah,
Wear a pair of rubber gloves
that's
when you're.
it's much more toxic and it's much more problematic to mix the glaze, which you guys won't be doing, than it is to use a glaze. So long as you're using tongs, washing your hands, wearing gloves, then you're perfectly fine. When you're mixing the chemicals and they're in the air, if you're stupid enough not to be wearing like a dust mask and wearing gloves, then it starts becoming a time over issue thing, right? So that's what it is.
So you're not going to be in any trouble if you're
You'll be
like most
perfectly
of us and you're here for a whole 2.5 hours a week.
Got it.
Yeah.
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 No, I'm just saying, like.
No, it's a valid question.
No,
Sure.
No, there's no odor.
Everybody
Well,
has
I can't say
concerns.
there is odor to some glazes because it might have been sitting for a while,
Mhm.
but it's not a toxic odor.
Okay.
Like there's nothing like you don't have to worry about fumes with this stuff. It's much more dangerous to be in the kiln room while it's firing than it is to just do the glazing. And again, you're not in the kiln room firing.
That also will change a color.
Temperature,
If
yeah.
the temperature on the
Yeah.
kiln gets spiked,
Right.
it starts again. I've seen a lot of changes happen to pieces that
So let's go into the actual process of glazing something. Before I do that, here's my general rule. If you have a bunch of things to glaze, just keep them all the same color. Now, you don't have to do it that way, but I find if I've got like 10 mugs, especially if they're the same thing, a bunch of the same thing. So I got 10 mugs. I'm not going to look at every single mug and say, well, what's this color that this mug should be? Screw that. It's like I'm going to make all these mugs white, and then I'm going to do an accent rim around the thing, around the rim. I'm going to do an accent color around the rim. You're going to save yourself a lot of time if you just decide to batch stuff out. Now, you guys don't have that problem as much, but Gene and Patrice may come to that problem at some point if you haven't already. Where you have like, say you do a bunch of plates like we did last week, and you got like 5,
I
6
might have
plates,
3 or 4 things.
Yeah.
right? So while doing 3 or 4 things,
Hi, Donna.
Hey, Donna.
Good morning.
you can start agonizing over glaze combinations on each individual one, or you can just be like, all right, it's all going to be green and blue.
Yeah, I
Done,
try to do
done.
some sets. That's why.
Do it as a set.
with
It's
that-
easier if you want to sell your work. It's easier to do it as a set.
Right, and that's why that piece,
Yeah.
one piece came out bubbly, and I said, okay.
Yeah.
I still have the other piece to, do that.
So, the actual application of glazing. First, we'll start with what you want to do. You want to clean the piece quickly. Doesn't have to be intense. Some people will say like, oh, once you get it wet, you got to wait 24 hours to let it dry. I'm not soaking this thing. I'm just wiping off any possible dust. Okay? So I wipe the piece down really quick. The next thing is I'm going to flip it over and I'm going to apply some wax to it.
I gave you. Do you want me to hold it?
That's fine.
Okay, so you watch. You have to put the glaze in the bottom. This is the bottom.
Gentlemen. Thank you. So I'm just going to apply wax. You only need a thin coat. You don't need a lot. As you can see, like, it's almost already filling in the entire base. Okay?
So that's the glaze coat itself.
No, this is wax.
That's wax.
This is wax. See, like one brush full of wax already did the entire base. Okay? You want to definitely make sure that you coat the bottom. Some people don't like wax. I love wax. It makes my life a lot easier, okay? The key when it comes to glaze is if there's a number one safety rule is that you don't want the glaze touching the base of the piece, because if it does and you don't wash it off, it's going to stick to the kiln shelf, right? Put it down here. Glaze is essentially liquid metal, liquid glass. So
It's metal.
liquid metal. That'd be really cool.
Terminator style.
Yeah. No, it's liquid glass. It's glass waiting to be fused, essentially. So if you had glaze here and then it gets superheated and fired, you're never going to take it off. So you want to make sure the bottom is clean. So I wax the bottom to make sure
prevents it from sticking.
and it prevents it from sticking. Okay. So now that this has been waxed on the bottom and it's been washed, the reason why you washed is the same reason you wash a wall before you paint it. You want to get the dust off so that way the glaze sticks. Now that it's all done, I'm gonna glaze. Okay. By the way, once you use all the wax, immediately wash the brush so the brush doesn't get gunked up. Okay. I'm gonna stick with Paul's white. Maybe not, because it's rather
There's only a little in there.
there's like a spot of it, so I'll go to my next favorite one, which will be blue root seal. All these buckets have a toilet brush in there, which is great for stirring. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to pour it in. Can you grab me? I'm going to pour in on the inside. Big one. Thank you. This is really good if you don't want a uniform color all the time. So I poured in, and now I'm just going to make sure that the glaze touches all the way to the top of every wall. Pour right out. I always have like a bucket of water with me. And for these drips that I don't want to stay, I'm just going to wipe these down.
I feel like it's going to be impossible for me to do the slides without doing.
That's okay. If you just do literally what I'm doing right now, you'll be fine.
There's another trick to use.
All right. So if this was all clear, what I just did, you'll be okay. All right. And then you just wipe the sides down. And this is a little extra stainy because it's red, and red stains ridiculously. That's why I mixed a red glaze for her last week, and it's still on my boots.
Does it get hard like glass?
No, not unless it gets fired.
Fire.
And it's just annoyingly stainy right now. Okay. So the next thing I'm going to do is, because I want this to be blue to a point, but I don't want this to go blue all the way down, I'm just going to hold it upside down like this and dip. Pour right out. Okay. So now it'll only stay to about there. I'm using a whole lot of this right here as sort of a buffer zone in case it decides to run. And it's got all this to run down. Now, if I dipped it all the way to the base here and then it decided to run, it's going to go all over the kiln shelf.
See, so like this is a whole lot of wiggle room, essentially.
So how do you get the rest of it?
I'm not going to.
You're not going
You do not have to fully glaze your piece.
to. Ah.
You can keep it kind of like this. Right? I'm not going to worry about. Yeah, I know it's true.
Yeah,
What
but
will
it's not
happen-
going to go all the way
What will
down.
happen if you fire the bottom? What will happen to the bottom half of it? Like, will it just stay?
It's just going to
it'll
turn that
brown.
raw,
It'll be just
raw
a different
clay
color.
color. Okay, so to discuss doing.
So basically, you're done.
Nope,
That way.
I could be done.
You
I could.
Okay.
I could say I really like blue rutile and that's it, and I just wanted a blue rutile piece, and then I'm done. I could do that. However, one of my favorite combinations.
It's dripping. I don't know if you're aware.
Network is blue rutile and Rebe.
Oh, I see what's going to come
Right? Now what I'm going to do, I'm not going to put a Rebe on the inside because I want to see the blue rutile. What I'm going to do is, now that I've mixed this up and turning it over again, just dipping a little like that. And I really like doing some runs or drips. What I'm going to do is I'm going to let this dry for a couple of seconds, and then I'm going to take the Uribe and I'm going to do the inside. So while we're waiting on this, let me go over a couple of good guidelines when it comes to glaze combinations.
It's kind of cool. It's like wax. Like I've been to the candle factory.
Yeah, it looks like
And like they dip it. It's like
Right.
two coats, and then they cut it open, and then they design it. And
it's about
it's
toast.
similar.
There are a couple of ways that you can safely pull off doing glaze combinations without worrying about it dripping all over the kiln shelf on the outside. Number one, if you're going to do a glaze combination, don't do it all the way to the base. Like I said, so I stopped a lot higher, so that way I'll have this wiggle room. Okay. The other way is don't do a full two coats on the outside. So notice I didn't go all the way to the base with the blue rutile, and I definitely didn't go all the way to the base with the Uribe.
If someone wanted to, how would that work?
Well, if you do, then you have a higher chance of it running all over. Okay.
There's nothing that you can use. There's no like instrument that was made to dip it in evenly or anything like that.
It's dipped evenly. That's not the point. It's the chemistry happening, right? So you've taken like one set of chemicals and now topped it off with this double set of chemicals. Okay? Because a lot of these glazes are chemically the same with the difference of the coloring. So when you have something that's already glossy and shiny, and you put it on top of something else that's glossy and shiny, you have a higher chance of it running. If you're going to do a combination, you're better off doing a matte and a glossy. I never tell people do glossy on top of glossy. Okay. However, the inside is completely fair game, right? Because what's the worst that can possibly happen? It's just going to run down on the inside and cool on the inside, right? So if you want to get really crazy with a 2, 3, 4 glaze combination, go for it on the inside of something. Okay. So like last week we were doing plates, and the week before that we were doing some bowls and stuff. You have a really big bowl, like a serving bowl, get as crazy as you want on the inside of that bowl, because that's what people are going to see more of than the outside. Like Donna was doing that leaf platter. You can get as crazy as you want on the inside with your glaze combinations because it's safe. It's not going to stick to the kiln shelf that way. Okay. But yeah, don't do glossy on top of glossy on the outside. Another safe way to do it is what I'm just about to do, are runs. So I'm deciding to do streaks. Okay.
When it comes to the bottom, Rita always tells us to make sure we leave at least a quarter of an inch unglazed
Definitely.
down
Well,
at the bottom.
I've waxed it, so this way I really am real careful where it doesn't go down all the way.
Yes,
or-
I do too.
I've been using the white underglaze because I don't like to see like an unfinished type of piece. To me, it looks unfinished. So Dominic says you could put underglaze on clay as
Right.
soon as you finish producing it,
Yeah, you could do that.
and then have it fired.
Yeah, you your streaks there are they gonna stay like that?
Yes, the streaks will pretty much stay where they are.
So when it's fired, it's gonna look streaky like
It's going
that.
to look streaky like that.
It's gonna look
So
beautiful.
if that's your aesthetic, go for it. If not, you don't have to do it. I'm just saying this is a safe way to choose to do a glaze combination with a lot more control than just like double dipping and praying to God that it all works out at the end.
What do you
Rutile and
mean?
Uribe.
He's doing Uribe and blue rutile.
And Uribe and blue rutile is a combination I've done a lot in the past, and it almost always
He
comes
did the
out
blue
great.
rutile first, though.
Yeah. Now let's go back to that Paul's White for a second. Again, if I wanted to get kind of funky, I can add in some Paul's White. And this is another way to do a glaze combination in more of a controlled manner.
You want a small,
I can take the brush. If I want, I can also do some like splatter designs. See what I mean?
but he's not touching it. That's the,
I'm not touching it, I'm just doing drips. And it's sort of mixing because I got a pool. Hey, Connie.
how you feeling?
I got a pool of the Uribe at the base. So the base at the bottom here is going to be really kind of funky. So we'll see how that turns out. All right. So this is like a little bit of an experiment. Now going to what Linda wants, like 1/4 of an inch. I got a good inch and a half here. So if this runs, it's by not my fault. You're all witnesses. Like I've done everything I can to make sure this thing does not run onto the kiln shelf at this point, right?
The only way it would do that is if there was a misfire.
If it overfired or something like that. Okay, which is possible, but so long as you have done everything that you can to make sure it doesn't run down the kiln shelf, and then we don't have to chisel the kiln shelf, no one's hand is going to get cut on the kiln shelf, you've done everything you can do. And then there comes to a point where it's just beyond your control. But try and control all the factors before that. Okay? So, any other questions about this?
Can't you put a little bit more wax up under your rim
I could.
to also?
If you want to do like a more of a dip than I have, I could technically wax to here. I can wax higher if I want. You can even use wax as what we call like a wax resist. So if I wanted to draw, I could draw the wax on in a pattern, then dip, and then it won't.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Say if I wanted to do like a negative of this and wax like this and that,
Right. You could do that.
and so that would be glazy except for those little patches that
Right.
would be a little rougher.
Now, just so you understand what the difference is, I'm going to do another dip on the base here.
That's cool. I like
And
that.
you see how
Yeah, right.
It pulls away.
it just pulls away, right? So if you did go all the way to the base, even though it pulls away, you still got to wipe the base. Okay, you got to make sure
you
it's
have to re-wax it or no?
no.
The
The wax does not come off.
It doesn't come off. Okay.
The wax doesn't come off till it's fired, right? So like it's a lot faster to clean this way. I'm like wrapping up that 850 cup order, and I wax the bottom of every single cup because imagine if I had to like scrub 850 cups, it'd just be done, right? So no, I wax the bottom so that way after it's all glazed, it's done.
That goes right back to my restaurant
Done.
business.
Yeah.
Sitting at the
Donna, are you gonna be glazing that
sitting at the
piece?
sink for like 2 hours washing pots.
Are you reglazing that piece? I have a piece that came out a little funky like that.
That's
Oh,
cool.
I'm using this to.
Oh, okay.
It's like a
I just
rustic
was
look.
curious.
It's not even mine. It was going to be thrown out. So.
So
I didn't.
She's just
any other
borrowing it.
any other questions, comments, confusions, problems? Anything in particular?
Nope.
No?
Yeah, I have another question. So
Yeah.
say I'm thinking about waxing, like I said, like in the negative here, here, and there. So then I'm gonna get two colors. That one is gonna be that brown clay.
Yeah, it'll be the
thing,
raw
and
clay.
then the wax part is going to be which color?
No. The wax part is going to be the raw clay, and then like
Like the color
Like
it
the
is
color
now.
it is now.
oh, okay.
Yeah.
And then
the non-wax part will have a glaze on it.
Right, like you can put the wax on there if I understand you correctly.
yeah, I want to
On
put it
all
like
of these pieces, parts that you want. And then you want to dip it into clear to
Yes.
make it shiny.
There you go.
Then the rest of it will be shiny.
But the
But
part that you
the
covered
part
with
that you covered with the wax is
Will
going to be
be
the
raw.
color it is now.
and raw,
Okay.
It won't
So
be shiny.
it won't be shiny at all.
yeah, I know, but it's also going to be a different color.
Yes.
Of the
Yeah,
one
just a
that
little
gets
bit.
the clear glaze.
Yes, the
Right.
clear glaze will be the
So
beige.
if I wanted to stay with
and
the
that
same
would be the
color,
pink.
I would have been very careful to put wax all over this,
Mhm.
and then dip it, and then I'll be getting more of this color other than
the beige.
the pukey
But you still have
beige
to
color.
you still have to wax the bottom. You saying though? or
I'm
is-
waxing the heck out of it
Okay.
because I like the color.
If you put,
It's
if
got-
you paint your glaze on.
Right.
in three coats,
3 coats.
are you less likely to have it drip?
Streak.
Yes, you have a chance. You have a better chance of it dripping.
All right, and then I know there's
You have a better
Oh,
chance
not
of not
dripping.
dripping.
Not dripping.
Yeah.
Not dripping. Yeah.
there are glazes that are more likely
Yes.
to drip than
Right.
others.
Right.
Okay. Why can't we have drip-free glazes all of them? So that we can have, you know,
A more
Very-
consistent type
perfect
of.
world.
It's a very good question. So the dripping can happen because of glaze combinations. That can be number one. Number two, it also depends. Like none of these glazes here are mixed here. Sort of. We mix them up, but they're pre-mixed glazes, right?
In a powder form.
In a powder form. So that means that Linda bought these glazes already mixed in a powder form from Coyote or Ceramic Supply or Ceramic Shop, wherever she bought them from. Which means we have no real way of knowing why sometimes a glaze might be running more so than others.
Because it might have more of one factor. than
Someone
another.
somewhere might have mixed the glaze wrong, or whatever. It also could depend on where the chemicals got mined from. There's a lot of things.
Right, so you don't have absolute control over it.
No, it also depends on how much water was
I was just
used.
gonna ask that.
Is it
So
really
many
thick?
variables.
Is it
Right.
really thin?
That's a question.
so if you had your own kiln and you bought your own glazes, you mixed them scientifically, however you wanted to do
Right.
it,
Sounds expensive.
it would.
It is. It is
Yeah,
quite
but
expensive.
I'm just saying, I mean, potters that do this for a living,
Yeah,
that's
that's
what
what
they
they
do.
do.
Right.
Sure.
I don't think they have to put wax on the bottom of their mugs.
They may or they may not. It's completely
I
up to
mean,
them.
usually you see the mugs,
Wouldn't it depend on the kiln too?
it's fully covered with the.
There's
with
different
the-
types of
Right.
kilns.
That's what I was just gonna say.
Yeah, there's a wood fire kiln that they
Right.
use out in Connecticut.
And they
which,
probably won't need wax on certain kilns.
oh no, he's
All
apparently
kilns need wax.
very.
It depends on the potter. It depends on their
And
style.
upon-
It depends
yeah,
on a
and
lot
their-
of things.
You know,
Yeah.
it's a lot of work to get that off, and you ruin the
This
shelves.
is really cool. I wish I got into this years ago.
There'll be places in North Carolina you can keep doing this. So one
John.
last thing I want to show you. Yeah.
When you, is there any rhyme or reason with, say, a glaze that's a little thicker? Is it more apt to be runnier?
Yes.
Or okay,
The
so
thicker
the
the
thicker the
glaze-
glaze, the runnier it'll be.
Right. Now, if you come across something that's really thick here in terms of the glaze, let Linda or Julie know. Be like, yeah, just it feels kind of thick. You might want to thin it out. Don't take it upon yourself,
No, I
whether
would
it's at
put
this
no
studio
water.
or any other studio you may work out of.
Mm-mm.
Don't take it upon yourself to thin the glazes.
No.
You're not being helpful. It might have to be thick. It might be supposed to be thick.
Right.
So one last thing I want to say is do not underestimate the power of just one color. I know everyone's
It's just maybe.
do not underestimate the power of just one color, right? A lot of people will get all obsessed with glaze combinations, but in all honesty, like one color can be pretty cool, right?
Yeah, and it depends on if there's any type of texture on the outside.
Right. So if you were going to use just one color, let's use this one still. This is how you would use a tong, okay? Really good grip, and then you would just dip straight in, let the whole thing fill up,
That's
and
the
then
instrument.
pour right out,
Okay.
and you can watch it dry in real time, and then you're done, okay? Everyone, I don't care what they say, everyone loves white. So if you don't,
White's
No,
a
what's-
it's like a safe.
it is the safest color you can
Safe bet.
choose. You don't know what to make it? Just glaze the whole damn thing white. Okay? Yeah, it's really basic bitch, but people love white. They buy white and black. It's people like white, the people like black. They feel comfortable with it. It goes with everything. You don't know what to do white.
But
Or
the
black.
thing is, the pool's white. You must dip it twice. One coat does not give you that really nice white look. I mean, in my personal.
And
Or
you're
it takes a few coats.
give you that white that against like kind of.
I've done
I
only
like
one
that.
coats.
Like this
I've
white.
done one coat and one
Yeah.
and two
This
coats.
one.
That's Paul's white. Yeah.
Yeah.
White. We also don't have a black at this studio. We have the charcoal gray, charcoal
And you
satin.
also have mink, which is pretty dark.
Right.
I've done mink.
I like this one. Is this different
That's
glossy?
French
That's
blue.
French blue.
This is one color. This is one color.
French
No,
blue.
but I got to look to
Blue,
see
blue,
if
it's
there's
three
any.
colors.
Blue rutile. It's blue on blue.
But there's three coats. There's three
Yeah.
different glazes.
So that's blue rutile over the French blue.
And then you have blue rutile with.
But in
French
order to
blue.
make it a little bit like cloudy in a way, would they swirl together or something?
Yeah, that just depends on like how it interacted on that.
And you're dipping,
Right.
you know, everything. Linda uses a second kind of rule. I don't know if you do. Like count 3 seconds.
Yeah,
and
you
a
can.
dip.
Usually it's 5 and 10 second
One
counts.
Mississippi.
The longer it's in there,
Right.
the deeper the color is going to be, the higher chance of running too.
Mhm.
All right. Does anyone have any other questions
And as
about?
far as the clear, you want it to be a quick one rather than a longer one?
Yeah, typically you want count to. If you're worried about it, count to 3. 1, 2, 3, and then pull it out.
Oh,
Should be
that's-
fine. Yeah, does not take long. Any other questions, comments, or confusions?
You like the
Can you help me when I do mine?
It is.
No, you're on your own. You're all on your own,
Also,
kids.
you have to line the table with
Newspaper.
newspaper.
Or spend the day
Otherwise, you
Just
and you have to
rubbing it
clean
all
up
off.
your stuff.
clean up after yourselves.
All right.
Okay, so I hope you really liked that video, and I hope it was really helpful for you. I know it was long, but I tend to say it's pretty much the only thing that you'll need on glazing for some time. Just remember, I'm not a glaze chemist, so if I did get some of the chemistry explanations wrong, I do apologize. Just trying to give the most practical, common sense information I can on glazing, so that way you can start glazing comfortably and not go through a lot of the typical problems people have as they begin. If you like this video, please like it, share it, subscribe to my channel. And again, if you have any questions, you can always email me, sporanoarts@gmail.com, or you can join my mailing list. There will be links in the description below. Thank you very much.